Hello and welcome to Estuary TV News with me, James Dunn. Today we take a look at the news headlines from across the region throughout the week. But first, here's Richard Morris with the news headlines.
Hello, in the headlines today, the Peaks Parkway speed limit will be increased and sustainable fishing is being agreed on by local fishing companies. The speed limit will definitely be increased to 40 miles per hour on Grimsby's Peaks Parkway. Average speed checks were introduced, catching many motorists out, which led to public outcry as many feel the road is made to handle faster traffic. After months of discussions, a decision was finally made to increase the limit, although the cameras will remain. The leader urged motorists to drive accordingly. At the same meeting, a motion to change the way North East Lincolnshire Council was run was also defeated. UKIP's Matt Stinson claimed the current cabinet system is undemocratic and called for the committee system to be reintroduced. He claimed it would introduce more elected councillors into the decision-making process at an earlier stage. But there was no support from the other parties, so the cabinet system will remain.
Mr Mayor, when I go around knocking on doors and speak to people, they don't say, oh, the biggest combined rate is that this council is undemocratic. They say, what are you going to do about jobs, growth, investment, housing, highways? That's what the public are concerned about.
Traffic emerged as residents' main concern as outlined plans for 200 new homes on land south of Grimsby's Hospital went on show for the first time. The land is owned by the Northern Lincolnshire and Goole NHS Trust, and they hope to sell it with outline planning permission next year. The plans went on show in the hospital's restaurant and staff were on hand to explain them.
But you haven't finished building Scaffold Top yet. And to get extra houses down there and all them cars coming out of one place, another 200, 400, it's going to be bedlam.
My main concern is the entrance, the access to the site, especially the cut through into Pelham Avenue, especially where if there's an extra approximately 200 cars going in and out daily, there will be a lot of congestion, and I'm a bit concerned about that.
The response from ourselves is that we're carrying out some detailed assessment work around transport and we will submit that assessment as part of the outline planning commission.
Immingham Seafarers Mission closed on December the 5th after the building was devastated by the tidal surge. But after extensive refurbishment, it's now reopened to serve the many seafarers who, from around the world who dock there. We spoke to Centre Manager Andrew Durrumpel after they cut the ribbon.
Well, it's a link with home. The most important thing that we do is provide facilities for them to communicate with home. These seafarers in this most important port in the country are actually visiting here and have spent many, many months at sea often and out of touch with their families, and in actual fact they haven't been able to get ashore in many places. So a brief visit ashore here is very meaningful to them. Gets them off the ship, gets them away from it, and gives them the opportunity of maybe seeing a newborn baby that they haven't seen before, or talking to their wives and families at home.
Even competing companies agreed on the importance of sustainability at Grimsby's Seafood Summit last week. They agreed on sustainable fishing practices and now look forward to what can be achieved as Grimsby hosts the World Seafood Congress next year. Paul Williams, the CEO of Seafish, explained more.
Great thing for Grimsby is that Grimsby is recognised as the hub of seafood sourcing and seafood processing, not just for the UK, but really for Europe. But of course, outside UK and Europe, that's not necessarily so apparent, and Grimsby is not a name that trips off the lips in North America or Canada or Asia. And I think the conference next year, getting the world into Grimsby, not just to hear the great lectures and not just to have a great event, but actually to see the local businesses, to see that hub, to see what goes on here, I think that's going to be a real revelation for people.
North Lincolnshire Council welcomed German visitors curious to see the region amid huge investment in the renewable industry. The leader of North Lincolnshire Council, Liz Redfern, explained how towns like Scunthorpe would benefit.
It'll create wealth, jobs create wealth, it creates spend, people come and live here so we can build houses. So as I say, it's going to be really, really a big step forward for this region. And we've got great plans for our town centre to do something different with the town centre. We started our university training college. I'm wanting to see a a student campus, bespoke shops, a cultural quarter, something that can complement our out-of-town sites. So hey, it's it's really good news here.
That's all from me. Bye for now.
Thank you, Richard. Well, today we've got our weekly paper review, and our guest today has made the arduous trek from the office to the studio. Thanks very much for coming in, David Nunn.
It's all right.
Tell me what's caught your eye in the headlines this week.
Sammy, something from the last couple of days is the fall in, obviously, job seeker allowance claimants in Scunthorpe and unemployment in general. It's one of the biggest drops for 25 years, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, the government said it's a 25-year low. The only thing is, I suppose, are we still in a good position here compared to other parts of the country?
Well, I mean, obviously there's going to be discrepancies in the wealthier parts of the country. Less people are obviously going to be unemployed. So in places like the south, I imagine the unemployment rate is lower than, say, around here. But it's certainly good news. I mean, I can see from the paper a 40% fall in the people claiming job seeker allowance over Scunthorpe over the past 2 years. I mean,
and that's in the Scunthorpe
drop.
Telegraph, so
Yeah.
that'd be the figure that they're interested in. I mean, I suppose the interesting thing really is, I mean, it is good news, but you know, does more still need to be done in regions like this?
Oh, definitely. There still needs to be investment in creating more jobs, but I think that's coming. Obviously, we've had the visit from the German visitors about future investment in the offshore wind industry. We've got upcoming projects in places like Scunthorpe to build, new houses and stuff. So it's all going on. I think, when these projects start, we'll see a bit more of a fall in unemployment.
It's interesting because actually I talked to people from the job centre and they're saying that what's key is a diversifying industries and the kind of opportunities that are available, and I suppose that's what we're seeing, so maybe we can be hopeful about the future.
Well, hopefully we can. I mean, it's obviously good that there's a fall in unemployment. It means that we're coming out of the recession, so it must be a good thing in my book.
Yeah, definitely. So what else can we talk about?
So we've got an article here from the Hull Daily Mail, which the council leader stands by the vote on the land grab. So this is the East Riding councillor Stephen Parnaby sort of still having a go at Hull City Council about their boundary referendum.
A land grab about the boundary referendum.
Indeed.
And Parnaby's not minced his words throughout this, hasn't he?
No, he's been a sort of Alex Salmon-like figure, I guess. Very, very forefront and very just sort of says it how it is.
Or certainly how he sees it.
Yeah.
I mean, I can kind of understand his frustration because there's been an independent commission set up by Hull City Council to talk about extending their boundaries for the economic benefit of the region. Whereas if you're an East Riding resident and certainly an East Riding councillor, you can imagine you might think, hang on a second, is anyone going to consult us about this?
Yeah, and plus when you look at obviously the commission has also been set up by Hull City Council and they've obviously picked the people to be on it, so people are asking questions of whether it's truly an independent commission.
Yeah.
I mean, it could go either way really at this point.
I'd like to see actually what happens because I can't imagine the people of the East Riding are going to stand by it. But even if they don't, or even if they do, I don't know exactly what Hull City Council's going to do about it. I mean, then I think, don't they apply to the Secretary of State?
Yeah, that's the thing, obviously. It's just the boundary referendum. I mean, the East Riding could say no, and Hull could apply to the central government anyway, and central government could still decide to extend Hull's boundary. So it could all be for nothing.
Yeah.
But obviously, I think obviously government wouldn't do that. But yeah, as you say, the government would have to apply to Hull City Council.
Hull City, yeah.
Yeah, the other way around. Sorry, Hull City Council have to apply to the government to see what would happen next after the result.
Well, I suppose that's one we'll await to see how that unfolds. But I'm sure Stephen Parnaby will have many more choice words for Hull City Council before that decision does come about.
Maybe the East Riding residents will follow in the vein of the Scottish and have a no vote.
Yeah,
we never know.
I don't know what. To be honest, I'm not sure how it affects me in any way. I suppose it's got much in common with the Scottish vote in some ways. Where should we go next?
So we've got next, obviously, in the news over the last couple of months has been obviously the Islamic State and the aid work from East
It's been everywhere,
Yorkshire.
hasn't it? This understandably so. It's tragic what's happened to these people in certain countries in the Middle East.
The latest victim to be beheaded was the aid worker David Haynes from Holness, born in East Yorkshire. And obviously there's been some sort of, obviously people will say that all Muslims are as bad as each other and they'll paint the Muslims with one brush, but actually this story in the Hull Daily Mail says that Muslims in our region are sort of standing up against the Islamic State.
Yeah, I mean they're almost falling over themselves, aren't they, to say this is not us, this is not what we're about.
Yeah, it's a good thing. So obviously, I said people, after you get like a terrorist attack or something, people will sort of jump to conclusions and paint all the same people.
And there's understandably very strong feeling against that sort of thing, and sometimes people don't really differentiate, do they?
It's good to see, Muslims in our country standing up against, people that are essentially radicals.
Yeah.
And speaking out against them. And obviously, there's, things to try and stop young people going over to join the Islamic State. If they see that Muslim community in Hull is condemning the killing of the aid worker, then they're likely to think, maybe moderate Muslims are right. Maybe I shouldn't go to join Islamic State.
Yeah, I mean, we hope so, and we hope also, communities who are terribly offended, and why wouldn't they be, about the kind of tragedies that are happening. I suppose the question is really, will they take note of headlines like that, or will they have already made up their minds?
Who?
The kind of people that these headlines are out, the attitudes that they're out to fight against, really. The people who have decided that, this is all Muslims, will they take note of something like this and say, it's not all Muslims, which most of us know?
I honestly don't think they will, because obviously it's been something that ever since 9/11, the London bombings, people have just had this attitude. And I think one headline about Muslims standing up against Islamic State isn't really going to make a huge difference in that perception. But I'd like to think it would, but practically I don't think so, really.
Yeah, well, I suppose we'll see that over the time, because maybe it's something that doesn't happen overnight. But what else have we got here then?
Under our papers we've got. Obviously, this is something that's been big in the news this week. The Humberside Police, obviously under their future plans, they're going to go from being a sort of 3 district force, I think it is, to 1. And obviously there's going to be, resources are going to be redirected to different places. So places like Grimsby, Scunthorpe, Hull benefit, while sort of more rural areas will lose out in police officers.
It's interesting you say that, actually, because this time last week I was talking to Grimsby Telegraph editor Michelle Lawler about something that the East Riding Council had commissioned a report that said they feared that rural areas like the East Riding were going to lose out on police resources. This week, since we've been talking about that, one thing we were also saying is that as yet we haven't really seen any detail. This week it seems like we have some detail, and it's saying that places like Grimsby, Hull are actually going to lose officers as well. I suppose it's concerning for everyone.
It is. I mean, you've got the thing about police obviously not going into rural areas as well. I mean, I live in a place that's sort of relatively rural, and I hardly ever see a police officer around anyway. So someone like me, it won't really make a difference. But if you're sort of, I guess, on a suburb on the outside of a town, if you're going to be losing police officers, it might make a difference as well.
Yeah.
And obviously this comes at the same time that you had I saw the Police and Crime Commissioner the other day on TV talking about how, the police won't physically turn up to every single crime, and people, they get people to sort of ring up more. And obviously this ties into this, and it will be create a perception that police may not even bother coming to help you out.
Yeah.
It's not something that's a good thing, really.
And I think that most of us do understand that the police have limited resources, but when it really comes down to it and you are the victim of crime, it's no consolation, is it?
No, I mean, I'm sure people that are victims of crime will say, they contact the police and nothing will happen for a while. And obviously with these, resource allocations and, getting people to ring up the police more over, and stop reporting lesser crimes, and you've got, it all builds up.
And I suppose the worrying thing is, maybe it sends a message to criminals as well.
Oh, well, criminals will see it as, less police commit more crimes.
Yeah, so it's an easier job for them, but, hopefully not. But I suppose we'll see over time whether it will have a negative effect or whether, as Matthew Grove says, they'll use their resources better and it will be effective at crime fighting. Yeah. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for, Dave. But don't forget that if you've got any stories to share with us, you can call us on 01472 315 553. Contact Estuary via Facebook or Twitter, or you can email us on news@estuary.tv. Bye for now.